Welcome to the ParentNet podcast by Focus on the Family Singapore. In each episode, we'll be speaking with everyday parents and practitioners as they share with us gems from their parenthood journey. Keep tuning in to learn with us as we figure it out together.
Hello and welcome to the ParentNet podcast. My name is June and I'm your host for this episode. Children's identities are constantly forming, and at a young age, they are easily influenced by ideas or friends they hear around them. So teaching strong values early helps guide them in the right direction. Joining us today on this conversation of values are Ashley Yeo and Joanna Lee, both mothers and early childhood professionals who are deeply passionate about raising children with strong values. Ashley is the director and owner of Maple Bear Sembawang, while Joanna is the center principal. Both of them are parent coaches, certified through the Parent Coaching Institute. And today, they'll be sharing their insights with us on the importance of instilling values in children starting from a young age. So welcome to our ParentNet podcast, Ashley and Joanna. Would you like to start by sharing a little bit about yourselves?
Hi, thank you, June. I'm Ashley, and yes, I'm the Centre Director of Maple Bear Sembawang, and I've been running it for the past 9 years. I have 3 children. One is P6 this year, another one is in K2, and one is in nursery, 2 boys and a girl. Happily married, and I make most of my days being at work with my younger 2 because they're in my school now. And then when I go home, it's basically mom duties until I fall asleep at night.
Hi, I am Joanna. I have 2 kids. One of them is primary 4 this year, and the other is primary 1 this year. I actually really enjoy spending time with my children, but as a working mom, there's some limitations on that. Yeah, so we try to make the best that we can with the time that we have in the evenings and also the weekends.
Thank you for your introduction. And I can hear immediately, right, that you are both busy moms, running your own school as well as your own family, right?
Yeah.
So on this topic of values, I'm sure the time that we have with our children is really key in terms of being able to share our values with them. But perhaps we could start with this. So why exactly are values important?
I think for me personally, having strong values in the family actually helped my family to be more grounded, and for me and my husband to be more aligned in how we parent our children. When we are met with some challenging situations at home, especially with managing our children's behavior, we fall back a lot on the values that we want to inculcate in our children, because it's definitely something that's out of line that we then feel that we should correct them. How then should we correct them, and how then do we use values to, correct our children in that process? So having clear values guide us a lot in our thoughts and our actions in the family. So we are more mindful in how we interact with our children and how we support them and nurture them in the way that we want them to grow up to be.
I see values very much as an anchor in my family. Something I often tell my own children would be that they must anchor themselves in our family values, despite whatever the world may tell you. And this is something like especially my primary school child faces. So, for example, there was once she came back and she said, Mommy, I have to tell you, because I want to be honest with you, that actually a friend of mine, she actually wants to head out after school and she wanted me to go with her, but I said I cannot because I'm not allowed. And then she actually told me why don't you just tell your mommy that you'll just be in school, staying back late, but you can just come out with me. And so that didn't sit very well with my daughter. I mean, she is also quite rule-abiding. So she came back and she spoke to me about it because it made her feel uncomfortable. So I asked her, why did you feel uncomfortable with it? And she said, because it required me to tell a lie. And I know that lying is not acceptable. And all the more, I shouldn't be lying to you because you are my mum. So I was quite appreciative that, she could be honest with me. And I realized that in that instance, that virtue of honesty, and also because we share this open relationship, that she's comfortable enough to come to me and tell me what has happened. And she also knew in herself that this is not something that she should do, even with peer pressure. The following day, she said, actually, when I told my friend no, right, my friend actually ignored me for the rest of the day. So there was some backlash as well. But thankfully, she was able to stand firm and to choose the right thing to do. I think that's something that really made me realize that, virtues and values are so important to anchor in our children from a young age, because this is what they will face in life. And this is something so important as they navigate through their growing up years.
I'm hearing that particularly with your example, Ashley, when it comes to peer pressure, when it comes to, certain temptations, that's where you're so glad and thankful, right, that
Yes.
you have that value to anchor your children in.
Yes.
And your daughter really shone in that aspect, in that particular situation, right, where she held firm to the value of honesty, value of communicating with mommy, right, coming
Yes.
home and immediately actually talking and processing with you about it.
Yeah. I was very thankful for that moment. Yeah.
And also, Joanna, you were talking about that alignment of values. It sounds like you and your husband also have to come together to talk about what is it that you are going to emphasize on as a family. It doesn't happen out of a vacuum, I'm sure. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
I think that for my husband and I, we see parenting very much as like a partnership and a team. It's so important that we have someone who's like an accountability partner to us. In the home front, we aren't perfect all the time as parents. So there are times when we are very tired and then we have to tend to our children, and then our patience wear thin. And that's when the true challenge comes, right? How do we still embody the values that we want to showcase to our children, yet we are so tired and we are not so patient at that moment. So as working mom, we have very limited time in the evening with our kids. And then we have to rush through the chores and then we feed them and do homework with them. Our patience wear thin when they cannot do something well and all. And I think that's when my husband supports me to help me check myself when I am not being kind in my words with my children, or when I'm not being patient with them. He reminds me of how I should be patient with them. How should I practice the value of patience with them or understanding with them, and not just, shout or yell at them. As parents, when we partner each other in this way, the similar support I give to him when he disciplines them and I find that it's a bit out of line from what we believe we should practice in our home, we help each other to keep each other in check. When partners come together and we talk about these instances, we have very open communication about it when the kids go to bed. We also, reflect and assess, why did you do that and how should we approach them in a better way the next time. I think that is very helpful for us in a family when we want to try to embody some values to our children and keep ourselves in check at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point that you raised, right? Like, it almost feels like this aspect of parents modeling the behavior and the values that we hope our children will catch is one of the really main ways, right, to help our children learn. Yeah, I'm wondering what other practical approaches or methods can our very busy parents use when it comes to guiding their children in wanting and desiring to live their lives according to these values.
I give a simple example, like kids, they all like to go to the toy store. And every time when we bring them to the mall, the kids will request to go and see toys. So how do we then instill values in those moments? For my husband and I will tell the kids, okay, today we are going there just to see the toys. We are not buying anything. Yeah, because we are trying to instill in them the value of prudence and self-control. So we don't buy them toys just because they ask for it. And we also explain to them why we don't do that. So helping them to understand the reason behind. So we explain to them that we are trying to save money for a upcoming holiday in December. So if we don't buy this toy now, we can save that for December. And it doesn't mean that whenever we go to a toy shop, we must buy something. I think we need to practice some self-control in that. So then how did this value then get passed on to my kids? So one day when my daughter came back from primary school, The primary school shopping mall is their bookshop. Yeah, kids love shopping at the bookshop. And she came home and she told me, Mommy, do you know I didn't buy anything from the bookshop, but my friends have bought something. Everyone has bought something except me. Then I say, oh, how come you didn't buy anything? And then she said, because I have self-control. And I say, oh, wow, that's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. But as a mom, when I look at that moment, right, it helped me to realize that we have anchored something in her through our actions and through our words and through explaining to them why we are saying no to something, and she has internalized that in herself.
Love that story. Wow.
Yeah. For my younger children, because I have preschoolers, right, I talk a lot about virtues through stories, bedtime stories. And a lot of the stories, sometimes, there'll be someone upset or crying. And I think it works very well when I draw their own life experiences and talk about that. And I think I use this time to talk about like what happened in their day. Just an example, it just happened yesterday, actually. My daughter, who's 5, turning 6, she cried in school. And her teacher told me that it was because a friend tore up her drawing. And then they had an argument about it because my daughter was so upset and she couldn't understand why her friends would do that. And it happened to also be a close friend who did it. So she was, even more hurt. So anyway, the teacher talked to them about it and actually got the child to apologize, but also try to make it better by using sticky tape to tape her drawing back together again. And then when I spoke to her about it, I asked her what she had learned from this. She said, well, I learned that if I did something wrong, like if my friend tore my drawing, then they shouldn't just say sorry, but they should also see how they can make it better. And for her, she saw it as her friend taping back her drawing was making it better. So the sorry is not just words. And I said, that's taking responsibility for your actions and making it better for that person, reaching out to, really act on that sorry. And then she said, yeah, and I forgive him because he's my friend. Yeah, so then I talked a little bit about forgiveness and I said, how did you feel after you decided to say, I forgive you? She said, well, I didn't feel angry anymore and I felt like I could be friends with him again. Yeah, so I thought, okay, it's real life for these kids, right? Because this happens all the time. In our preschool, they have their little tiffs and, they get upset with each other and it's all part of growing socially and emotionally. I think it's so important to have virtues and values taught to these children, to give them the vocabulary to say, this is what kindness looks like. This is what forgiveness looks like. This is what responsibility looks like. And this is how we act it out in our daily lives. I think like in our school, we really like to let the children have opportunities to grow and to learn and act out their virtues. And in our school, we have something called the Virtues Program, which we do on Fridays. And we actually teach the children about these different virtues and we cover different virtues every term. And in these sessions, we allow them to explore virtues through stories, through role-playing, through, just interacting with each other, sharing experiences. And what we find is that the children actually really absorb that and they live out these virtues. And that's so important, especially in these early years, which is why I'm really championing for families to take time to think about what they want their family values to be. This is something that in the current world that we live in now is so watered down by pop culture, by everything else that's going on in the world, the unrest, and there's so much unkindness. So how do we make sure that the next generation, the children that we are stewards of now, can really anchor themselves in the right values to act well as human beings to others? And it really starts at the family. So, at our school, we have so many children, right? And we do our best to try and teach them, to try and role model and all that. But we also need to work with families and have conversations with parents to make sure that these things are done at home as well. And where do I learn how to be a person? It's at home. And I model behavior from my parents, from what I see. And this is something that I really hope, more and more parents will get on board with and take time to maybe as husband and wife talk about what are our family values? What are the values that we want our children to always hold on to? So I tell my children always that in our family, kindness is very important. We must always choose kindness, even when sometimes it might be inconvenient, or even when sometimes you don't feel like it. Yeah. And of course, being human, right? I will even give them examples like I might slip up. As Joanna was sharing, sometimes you're tired, right? After a long day at work, you go home and seriously, after all that, and your children are throwing tantrums and all, you don't feel like being very kind. But then if I do lose my temper, I usually try and make an effort to go back to them and say, I'm sorry that I lost my temper. And I'm sorry that just now I wasn't very kind. I should have done this. And I think that also brings an example to them that it's okay if we make mistakes. It's okay if maybe today I wasn't kind, but what's the lesson here? The lesson is that even if I wasn't kind today, I can always try again. And I can always say sorry and do better. And I think that is also a lesson of how do we pick ourselves up from making mistakes. And I think that's something that children also learn at home and how they deal with their issues and problems. And I feel like families really, it's so important to know what your family values are and to have your children anchored in that. And it makes life easier because you always come back to your family values.
I'm hearing that really is the family that is the first birthplace, if you like, of values, of virtues, right? That you can model, that you can talk about, that you can read bedtime stories about and try to link to, everyday examples, right? As you mentioned, that little incident, right, of the tiff that your daughter had with her friend over tearing up the drawing. There's so many lessons that you can actually draw out from one single incident. And I like how you emphasize that sometimes it's as simple as reading a story together. Yeah, so it's not like rocket science. You don't have to pay exorbitant amounts of money to actually be intentional on this journey.
Yeah, I think it's little things, and really, how do we make this sustainable for families who are busy? And I mean, being working moms ourselves, we know how precious time is with our children. We know how little time we get to spend with them truly. With 3 kids myself, when I go home, I really feel like I have to split myself 3 ways, and I have a little bit of time with this child and then that child and this child. And so I really have to find simple ways to touch base with each of them. So maybe with child A, it's a story. With child B, maybe she just likes spending time with me. So sometimes I just sit with her in the room as she does her work and I'm just there, and maybe child C wants me to go for a walk. Little things like that I can work into my day. I think when you share these moments with your children, when there's that bond, they will talk about their day with you. And that's where the little nuggets and the gems really are shared. And it's these little moments that you get a glimpse into what they're thinking. And then you can work your teachings into those conversations.
I think another way that families can do is to recognize how powerful their words are to their children. So when we see something good, can we amplify it for the children to help them see that, they are practicing kindness, they're practicing respect. For example, I remember there was once I went to NTUC with my son, and then I was carrying many bags of grocery. I didn't plan to buy so many things, but you know what happens at NTUC? You just buy a lot of unnecessary things in the end. And then he saw me carrying so many bags of grocery. Then he asked me, can I help you to carry one? Then I say, oh, wow, thank you. Thanks for being so helpful and so kind to me. Then I said, why are you helping me? Then he said, because you helped me to carry my bag last time. So I want to help you. And I think that helped me to recognize, our little actions and our words of affirmation to our children actually has such a powerful impact on them. And it really doesn't cost us much. But what it does is it helps us to be more mindful of the little things that they do, and then helping to bring that to their attention and say, you did this and it was helpful. You did this and it was kind. And when you did that, you were being generous to your sibling. So for young children, we can help them to recognize the actions that they do. And I think for older kids, it would be more in the asking questions, right? So they come home and they will share maybe some problems that happen in school, and very often then we will ask them, so what do you think about it? If you were that person, would you have done that? Or what else could you have done? I think that for my daughter, then she would share her perspective and what she agreed on or disagreed on about a certain action that she sees and what she did or what she would do in that scenario. And I think that's very important because it helps our children to think and to assess and to reflect on what they would choose to do in that moment. Yeah. So for the younger ones, it's to amplify it. For the older ones, I think it is to help them to think for themselves. What would you do and what kind of values would you show in that moment?
Yeah, that's such a good point about how we might guide older children. May differ slightly from how we actually teach younger ones, right? Our teens, they may witness some bullying acts, or they may witness some mean things that people say or mean labels that children may use on each other, and what this actually results in, how does it make that person feel? So these are questions that we could use to help facilitate, that helps them to clarify their thoughts and maybe come to a deeper understanding of what a particular value can be used to actually help the situation or the person.
One interesting thing that my eldest daughter, who is 12 this year, told me recently is that whenever she faces a difficult situation or she has to make a choice, she always feels that she can fall back on what she knows her values are, and that helps her be brave to make a choice. And I thought that's really quite powerful because she said she uses the family values as like a compass. So like when she feels lost, she'll just think, what do I hold dear to my heart? What values are important to my family and myself? And she will just base her decisions on that. And I thought, wow, like I didn't expect my 12-year-old to be able to come back and tell me something like that. It wasn't something I expected, but it was such a rich experience. I mean, to hear from her, that's how she's making her decisions. And I'm thinking, wow, it really is so powerful. Like, I'm so glad that she has her values anchored so deeply in her that she actually draws strength from having these virtues. It anchors her, and she's certain about her next step because she knows what's right and what's wrong. She knows what's important to her. She knows what is acceptable to her. And then she makes her choice based on that. And I think that could be a very powerful tool for families to use as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, in light of social media and in the online space, what you might be exposed to or the ideas that you may come across when things feel so confusing or maybe even pressurizing for a young teen. It's so wonderful to actually have a set of values that they can fall back on, like your daughter, right? And be able to say, yeah, I feel lost, but I have these things to guide me with. And of course, I can always turn to mommy and daddy, right? To check in with when I really need it.
Recently, one more thing she said to me was that she said, thank you for listening to me without judgment. And then she said that to her, that is me showing her kindness because her day is hard and she's like stressed with her PSLE and all that. And then one day she was pretty upset before bed, and so she was crying. At that moment, I asked her, what's wrong? She said, it's a long story. Can I tell you tomorrow? So, okay, I left it. And then the next day, she talked to me about it. And she was sharing something really personal and private. And I was actually very shocked that she was sharing it with me, because maybe if I were her, I may not share this with my mom. And so I said, thank you for being so open with me. And I think you're being very courageous and for sharing it with me. And she said, well, I know that when I talk to you, it is without judgment, and I know that I won't be in trouble. And I also felt like that was such a good reminder for me as a mum. And it's such a great affirmation to me as a mum too, that I have such a trusting relationship with my daughter, that she knows she can come to me and she can talk to me. And I think especially as she goes into this era of her life, teenage years, right? And now she's a preteen. It's so precarious because, peer pressure, self-image and all these things, right, will come into play, hormonal changes and body changes. But then, she said, I feel safe to come and talk to you. And I know that I will get the right direction from you. So I was so taken aback, but also felt so affirmed that she could trust me and she trusted me enough to come and talk to me about it. And she said, because you show me what kindness is like. And when you listen to me without judgment, that's kindness to me. In trying to anchor values in your children is very much in the relationship that you have with them.
Yes.
Yeah, not so much about telling them this is kindness, this is this, but also in acting out and building that relationship with them.
Yeah, it's indeed built on the relationship that you have. And I would be so encouraged too. So well done.
Thank you.
Both of you. Yeah. It's really great to have had you both here, and you have shared so many of your personal stories as well as from your experience, running a preschool. So I think I picked up many gems, and I'm sure our listeners too as well. Before we let you go, do you have any final words of encouragement for them?
For parents, like what we've shared just now, you don't really have to do any big thing, right, to make a change. But I would then pose a question. So then what is something small that you can do today to live out a value that you hold most to your heart? Or even maybe just think about a value that you think you would like to live out today. Because I believe that values are very much lived than thought. And we are the role models to our kids. So they will model after us the kind of values that we want for our family. Yeah.
Well said.
For me, I think I will leave it for my listeners as, if you were to choose any single value, for me, I always choose kindness. Because I think when we choose kindness above all else, it really leaves an impression on the person who receives it and the people around us. And the world can always do with a lot more kindness right now.
Yes, it will be a better place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you both once again for being here with us.
Thank you, June.
Thank you, June.
For more of our parenting resources, do head over to family.org.sg/subscribe. And if today's episode resonated with you, remember to hit the follow button to stay connected. Do leave us a review or share the episode with a friend in your community. So that's it for today. Do keep tuning in to the ParentNet podcast to learn and grow in your parenting journey.